Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Surviving Social Engineering and Ransomware, brought to you by KnowBe4. My name is David Davis from Actual Tech Media. Thanks so much for joining today's event. We have some really cool security stuff to talk about today. Before we jump into it, a few things you need to know about the event and just how it works is I'm going to kick the event off here and talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about. We're going to do a quick poll question. And then Eric, our presenter today, he's going to talk about ransomware and social engineering. Now, during the event, I'm sure you're going to have lots of questions for Eric. Please use the question box there. We want this to be a very educational event. Eric is a security expert and evangelist, and he has tons of information to share about ransomware and social engineering. So be ready to ask some questions. At the end of the event, I'll be giving away today's prize, which is a $300 Amazon gift card to one lucky attendee on the live event today. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. As I said, my name is David Davis. I'm an 8-time VMware vExpert, a CCIE, and a partner at Actual Tech Media. And I've been doing video training now for a long time. Most of it is available at pluralsight.com. I'm proud to be joined today by Mr. Eric Cron. He's a security awareness advocate for KnowBe4, and he's going to tell you a little bit more about himself in just a minute in his part of the presentation. So today's topics, what are we going to talk about? Well, we're going to cover something called CEO fraud, and we'll talk about why ransomware and CEO fraud are surging. We'll discuss the recent variations on social engineering tactics, how social engineering is changing over time. We'll discuss proven methods for protecting your organization from ransomware and social engineering. And then finally, we'll cover how to create a human firewall. And so a lot of cool stuff to talk about. You might not even be aware of, what some of these terms are. I know I feel like I'm getting up to speed on exactly what CEO fraud is. There's a lot of things changing in the area of ransomware today. It's a very hot topic, which is why I think this event is so timely. So before we jump into it, let me first launch our poll question here. And that is, how would you best describe how your organization currently does security awareness training? And maybe you don't do anything at all. We just rely, on filters. Maybe you bring all the users at once, herd them all into a break room and say, don't click on anything, be careful. Maybe you have some monthly short security videos. Maybe you do some phishing tests to high-risk employees, or maybe you have a comprehensive training program of some kind. So interesting to hear what you're doing today. I personally know someone who's been hit by not by social engineering, but by ransomware. His home storage area network was attacked over the internet. It was encrypted. All of his family pictures, baby pictures, everything were encrypted and held by ransom, and he had to bring up some bitcoins, sell some bitcoins to get the keys to unlock the family photos. And he posted the whole thing in a blog series about his experience online. So it's pretty scary when it hits people that personally. Let's see the results of this. Let me go ahead and share those results so you can see what your fellow IT professionals are doing out there. 36% don't really have anything at all. 28% at the opposite end of the spectrum train employees online and send frequent phishing attack emails. And then there's a number of people in between. So, Eric, what do you think about the results of the poll?
It's a little scary that 36% do nothing. Given the current threat landscape and what's going on out there, man, that's a little bit spooky. But I'm happy to see the 28% are doing the whole thing there. That's nice to see. We just need to bring the others more to that direction.
Absolutely. All right, so with that, I'll go ahead and hand it over to you, Eric. Take it away.
Excellent. Okay, so as he said, my name's Eric Crone. I work for a company called KnowBe4. We're a security awareness training and simulated phishing platform SaaS provider. And we're world's largest library of security awareness training content. We just partnered with the SAC, the Security Awareness Company, for a lot of their stuff. We're based out of Tampa Bay, Florida, which is not horrible. And our chief hacking officer is Kevin Mitnick, which many of you may be aware of. Um, what we do is we help a lot of folks manage the problem with social engineering. Now, where this helps us right now in this seminar is we see a lot of this as it's going on, right? One of our tools is called a fish alert button. You put it in Outlook, you put it in Google, etc., and users can flag emails that look like they're phishing attempts. And this is a free tool. It's available to anybody, customer or not. But basically, it flags these emails, sends them in to people on your staff, and you can choose to CC us as well. And a lot of our customers do that. So what we see is we see a lot of the latest, greatest kind of stuff that's going on out there. And I like to share this information with folks to try to protect the folks that are out there that are fighting against us on the front line. I'm going to talk a little bit about myself here. Who am I? I'm a CISSP. I'm old. Been around since mid-90s in IT and security. I was the security manager for the U.S. Army's 2nd Regional Cyber Center Western Hemisphere, which is a mouthful to say. And I also worked for ISC Squared for a bit as the Director of Member Relations and Services. And as a side note, I'm going to be running for the 2017 Board of Directors for ISC Squared. I have a spot on my website at madsquirrel.com, and that's squirrel with a 1, where I talk a little bit about what I want to do, why I want to do it, and I have a petition there. If you're an ISC Squared member, I'd love it if you check that out. But I've been around for quite a bit in IT. I've been around for quite a bit in security, and that's kind of my background where I come from. What's happening now is we're seeing the ransomware and CEO fraud, and part of CEO fraud is its cousin, the W-2 fraud, which I'll talk a little bit about. We see this stuff growing out there. We see the headlines constantly coming across our feeds about this and that happened, so-and-so got breached, et cetera, et cetera. We need to stop that. We need to know, though, why is this still happening? Why is it still so common? And what's happening is people are the weakest link, okay? 91% of successful data breaches started with the spear phishing attack. And it's the main attack vector in ransomware, CEO fraud, and again, W-2 scams. As long as people are still falling for this, we're going to continue to see this problem, all right? Now I'm going to show you a little blurb here from probably my favorite TV show out there right now, Mr. Robot, right? I've never found it hard to hack most people. If you listen to them, watch them, their vulnerabilities are like a neon sign screwed into their heads. This is very true. If you really look at people, social engineering is, it's the art of taking human characteristics and using them to get what you want, right? Whether it be getting them to perform an action, let you in places, whatever. But you can look at people and you can see, hey, does this person look like they're, like they're going to stand up if I get a little bit aggressive with them or not? And then you exploit those sorts of things, okay? So I was really refreshed to see in this show there's so many good little social engineering things that go on. It really hit home for me. Now, what's happened over time is this is kind of our 5 generations of cybercrime, right? It started out back in the day, some kids in their mom's basement eating pizza. They were doing this kind of to gain notoriety, to make their name known, to be cool among their friends, right? This is what hacking was back in the day. Moved up to worms from back in the the early times, which was somebody's got to carry a floppy from one place to another with SneakerNet to make any impact. But then they started spreading out on networks, right? Where things really started to change was in what we like to call the 3rd generation, right? This is where they moved from just wanting to be known to actually making money. This is the recognition to remuneration phase, right? They started doing the botnets. They started doing those sorts of things where you could actually monetize some of the hacking activities that were going on. And then it just got it got more and more advanced. Um, at this time, we're in generation five, if you will. There's an active underground economy. You can buy and sell all kinds of stuff. You can get ransomware as a service, malware, all sorts of things are available on this underground economy. And what's happened is it's turned into an actual business. And you'll see this in some of the later ransomware strands where there's actually tech support available. And these guys are working in buildings, having lunch breaks and talking about Game of Thrones or whatever it is they do, where they're located over their lunches. And, it's just like a regular business. The other thing that's happened here in this fifth generation is it's become either state sanctioned or state protected in many cases, right? We see a lot of stuff, and I know Russia and the USSR sort of stuff is in the news a lot right now with all the Trump stuff, right? But without getting bogged down and mired down in that sort of stuff, we know that a lot of these attacks come from Eastern Europe. A lot of these syndicates, a lot of these groups operate out of Eastern Europe. It's just kind of what's happening out there, especially in the ransomware side. So we have smart people there. They're educated well, but they don't have a lot of options, and this is money for them. And again, it's turning into a business, so they're not really seeing that it's a bad thing. CryptoLocker and CryptoWall being good examples of kind of things that came out of that and organized crime. So it's become a pretty serious threat. This isn't just the kids playing around anymore, right? And what's indicative of that is if you look at this chart that I just put up, this is through I think first quarter 2016. Those are the different major variants of ransomware that have come out compared to say 2013, 14. You can see where it's become much more aggressive in what's going on, and consequently, with all of these strains exploding, uh, it's really hitting a lot of organizations. It's hitting them pretty hard, and nobody's really exempt. There's no too big, no too small. I'll give you a couple of examples here. This one's Madison County, Indiana. Okay, the county was hit by a ransomware, locked out all the county court systems. They're booking people into jail using pen and pencil and paper and old school stuff, man, stuff that probably nobody there has done in a long time, right? Um, it scares me to think that these folks are getting booked into jail without being able to look at previous county records to see if they had previous convictions or anything. Obviously the national systems are still up, but you know, how many things could have gone horribly wrong with this? Uh, what got me on this is some of the quotes down here, right? Director of the county's IT department said they'll make sure the system is secure before the new data is there, and we're in the process of adding a backup system. And I don't know if they meant a backup system or a backup system, but either way, the in the process of is a big problem. And in addition, the county commissioner said the county was preparing to upgrade antivirus software, right? This is way too much of the too little too late sort of thing. I'll talk a little bit about what you need to have in place in a moment here. Another one that made the news here was Muni out there in San Francisco. This is the trains, if you've ever been out there. This is BART. This is the buses. And on Friday and Saturday, November 25th and 26th, this is like Black Friday. The Muni train station gates were wide open and passengers rode for free. I read one estimate, it was $500,000 a day in costs for that to happen, because they were still having to operate but having no income. This is pretty significant. This is 900 machines in the agency were hit by this. $73,000 ransom. And I'm glad to see, last report I heard, they did not pay the ransom. Instead, they were wiping the machines. But even so, that's a pretty significant hit on people that you would think would have a little bit better hand on that, right? So where this is scary, it can be kind of funny too when you look at some things. I love this picture. I love this comic here, right? It kind of covers all of the things that are going on with IoT and where we're going to end up with in the near future if we're not careful. All right. IoT is one of these things that's just we're going crazy with it, but there's just not a lot of security behind it. And this picture was actually from before the Dyn DNS attacks, which is ironic because you have the lamp and the camera there on the table saying, "Excuse us while we participate in a DDoS attack," right? But my favorite one on here really is the broom down in the right-hand corner. Send me 25 bucks or I'll tell everyone on your social network that you were stupid enough to buy an internet-connected broom. Pretty classic, right? But we're getting more and more connected. And if you're concerned about it, you're definitely not alone, right? These things are going to be attacked. They're going to be held hostage. We've seen it happen in some thermostats already in proof of concept. We're seeing, there was an issue with a smart TV that happened around the Christmas time. We're seeing that able to happen, and we're seeing it actually starting to happen. So I'm going to share with you guys the results we had of our 2016 and our 2014 ransomware survey, right? We did the survey, and we asked these same questions across these two different years. And what's interesting to see is between 2014 and 2016, the number of folks that said they'd been hit by ransomware doubled. From 20% to a full 38% of organizations had been hit by ransomware, right? 93% expected it to increase for the rest of the year as opposed to 88%. And 61% now felt that email attachments were the greatest threat compared to 47% back in the day. What's really interesting here is that when it came to protection, it was almost identical in 2014 and 2016. 88% said training, security awareness training is the most effective protection from ransomware. And 83% said backup is up there too. So, I mean, that's a big number right there. And it's important because time and time again, I hear the same thing out there, that these are the big things. You want to prevent it, and if you can't prevent it, then you need to be ready to restore. And prevention is obviously the training part there. I'm going to talk a little bit here about a new variant we just started seeing today, actually. This is called Spora. And this is kind of where these guys are going with this. This one actually offers an option of future immunity. They're not kind and do it for free, but apparently you can pay for that. I don't know that much about these pricing structures. Again, I just saw this for the first time today, so I don't know what's included in a file restore versus a full restore. But I think it's interesting that they offer immunity for 50 bucks. And I don't know if that means immunity on this machine or other things. But what's also interesting about this one is they're using a Windows Crypto API to actually do the encryption. So there's no CNC server needed, okay? And one of the things that folks use as a counter to this is kind of blocking any outbound unknown sort of communication to the CNC servers, but there's not one needed here. And that's not necessarily a good thing, all right? There's a 256-bit per file AES key that's encrypted with a public RSA key that's unique to the victim. What this means is there's going to be no free decryptors for this because it's based on the public RSA key. We don't expect to see any free decryptors available for this. This one also does hit the local files and network shares. And unlike a server, it doesn't append an extension to them. It leaves the extension alone. Now, I do understand it adds the RSA key name to the file, but it doesn't change the description. The other thing is it does some sort of statistics gathering and sets a ransom amount based on the statistics. And I don't know if that's how many files it's hit or how many machines it's hit or how exactly that's working. Again, this is very, very fresh. But this is also one of the most well-made landing pages for ransomware that I've seen yet. It's very clean. It's very well done. There's a public communications over there, and you can actually get tech support on this one as well, right? I know that if I was if I was encrypted and came to this page and saw greetings to all, it would do nothing but make me madder. But this is something to keep an eye open on is this new variant that's coming out now. These things are getting released all the time with new quote unquote features. Um, and they're getting trickier, they're getting uglier. Some folks were looking for example, file extensions to trigger certain pieces of software to lock down shares, etc. That can't be done anymore with some of these. They're fighting back every time we get ahead. It's kind of a whack-a-mole thing, you know. So moving on, why can't we seem to stop this? This is kind of my opinions here. We focus too much on technical solutions for everything. We love the new whiz-bang cool hardware, but we don't focus enough on the 101 stuff, the security 101, and the non-technical solutions. We just discount. Now, I'm a tech geek just like anyone else, and I love working with newfangled tech stuff, but I have to keep myself, in check and realize that that's not always the solution to everything. Um, the other thing that we do is we underestimated the bad guys. The bad guys are pretty serious. If you think about 2016, nobody saw ransomware hitting the way it did in 2016, or at least very few people did. I'm not aware of any. We knew that it was happening, but we didn't expect it to hit the way that it did. So we've really underestimated how that's going. Another thing that's happening is the threat is really underreported. And when I say this is because a lot of folks, a lot of organizations that get hit with ransomware don't necessarily report it to like the IC3. And yeah, I get it. You go to the FBI site, you report it. They're not going to help you. I'm not saying that they are. They're not going to come and do anything unless it's a good chunk of money. But by just taking the machine, wiping it, putting it back in service, and not doing anything, the threat is being sincerely underreported. By doing that, they can't necessarily get the funding they need for people, et cetera, et cetera. And we don't have a real good idea, other than individual polls and surveys, how prolific this really is and how often it's really happening and what it's costing industry every year. For you guys in the tech field, that's important because you can use that for budget arguments and trying to get things to protect yourself from this. So we've got to start doing a better job of reporting this. And then, yeah, let's see, users can be anxious about technology. We have users in finance, we have users in marketing, we have users all over the place that aren't necessarily all technical people, and they get really anxious about technology stuff. They don't know what to do or how to deal with it. They kind of lock up. I'm sure we've all seen people kind of lock up at the keyboard, whether it be our mother-in-law or grandma or whoever when we're trying to work with them. Well, our users are doing the same sort of thing, so we have to educate them a little bit so they're not as uncomfortable with it. And last but not least, when we do security training, it's really being done a lot just for compliance. And that's the wrong reason to do it, right? So in this poll earlier, we had 36% that did nothing. We had 28% that really went all out. But that whole middle area there was kind of like, well, we got our toes in the water a little bit here, right? A lot of that, I would guess, has to do with compliance. So, we're PCI compliant. Oh, we require some sort of awareness training. Let's check the box. Let's call it good. Well, the problem is that's not good enough these days to check the box. And training your people is the number one thing you can do to get them to quit clicking on stupid things. It's just a fact. So doing it simply for compliance is not going to bode well for you, okay? Now, I see. Hold on one second, please. If you would. Okay, sorry about that. Had a little technical malfunction there. Now, how do you increase your confidence? Well, you've heard me say it enough already. Train your users. It works. Weapons grade backups. That's the term we like to use for it here. And I'm serious about this. This has to be good backups. I don't know about you guys, but having been in IT a while, I've had that sinking feeling when my backups wouldn't restore. It's not a good feeling. And it always seems to happen when you need it the most. Well, why why does that happen when you need it the most? Well, because that's the only time you actually do it, right? So you need to build this into your testing. You need to test your backups. It has to be a part of it. It has to be isolated from the network. There was a police department in Texas, I believe, that got hit with ransomware, and their first thing was, man, we're not paying this stuff, until they realized that their backups were also encrypted by the ransomware. And that kind of changed their whole mind on things. They ended up having to pay the ransom. So you got to make sure that they're not somewhere they can be impacted. And the 3-2-1 rule is one of those things that's good here. 3 copies of the data, 2 different medias, one of them off-site, right? Don't rely on Dropbox to be your quote-unquote backup, because a lot of this ransomware goes and hits that right away. In addition, shadow copies are not a backup. They're convenient, but that is not a backup. A lot of malware strains and a lot of ransomware will target that and remove those before they start tearing down the box. So make sure you have good backups. Make sure you test your backups. Make sure when you restore that you have enough space to actually restore those backups without destroying the forensic evidence that was in the original files, right? So let's say you get infected. Let's say you're making an insurance claim, but now you've wiped all of the forensics because you didn't have enough space to restore these things offline or move those other files to. That can be a problem for you. So think about these things moving into it. Segmenting the network. Again, a lot of this is just security 101, right? But there's no reason that marketing computers or your receptionist should be able to get to a login screen on a SQL server or your accounting system. It doesn't need to happen, right? So you need to keep that separate. It's very important to keep things from spreading that way. And a lot of this ransomware now will go out. It'll look at map drives. It'll even look at history of drives that weren't necessarily mapped, but you went to on a UNC or something like that. It'll look into those, and it can find things and do pretty ugly things on your network too. So keep it segregated. Anyone in your organization can get hit by this, from developers, believe it or not, IT folks, down to your receptionist. And any of those people, if they kick this off, it's going to be a bad day for you, right? The other thing, principle of least privilege. This is something we've been touting since there was an ability to have a separate login, is don't make everybody an admin if you can. And I understand there's organizations out there that, they have to, they're on the road, it's their laptop, it's their whatever. Okay, I get that. But at least try to limit it to cases where that's true, where it's not just a matter of convenience, but really something that could be a problem if somebody's out on the road or whatever. And they certainly shouldn't have admin rights to anything in your network resources, et cetera, et cetera. The less access they have, the less they can spread, right? And you want to be monitoring your network. Use a SIM or an IDS to alert on this malicious network behavior. Set up some canary files, do something like that. That's, doesn't take a whole lot of manpower to do, but will tell you if something odd is going on, right? You don't want one machine to get infected and then start traversing your network and being blind to it. And there's some, low cost or free SIMs out there. Alien Vault's OSIM is one of them that I've had really good luck with. And you can look for this sort of thing going on. And then last but not least, keep up with patches. And we've gotten a lot better at OS patches, but we still kind of stink at doing applications and especially browser plugins. Yet these are the things that do end up getting exploited quite a bit, right? So keep an eye on those. Get those patches going on. Keep an eye on the latest CVEs on the applications that you use, and get them patched, get them updated. it's going to save you a lot of time in the long run, right? This is how this is how you can best kind of defend against it. Now, people are going to say, oh, well, what about whitelisting? I always end up with that one. And whitelisting, I think, is a great thing if you can whitelist applications. However, whitelisting takes a lot of manpower and overhead typically, which is why I don't always just include it in my slides. If you can do it, that's great. That means that no application can run without your consent, meaning that if somebody downloads an executable or something like that, they're not going to be able to run it. But as I said, it tends to be very heavy on the manpower side here. So moving on from that, let's talk about this human firewall. Human firewall, how do you create that, right? What does this really mean? Well, you create a human firewall by making your people aware of the threats and being able to do something about it, right? So, as I said before, most security awareness programs are still very, very superficial, and they're done for compliance. If you do that, you're going to fail. That's all there is to it. If we can't get our estimation of the adversary being faced, we're also going to fail there, right? We have to understand this is a real threat that's going on. If you train your people once a year and just send them out on the keyboard, that's not enough either. That's going to be a fail. People need to be kept on top of what's going on. And even simulated phishing, if you're just doing it to groups of employees on its own, you're not actually doing the training, that's going to fail too. But what you need to do is you need to train your users, and then you need to follow up with those phishing tests. The phishing tests reinforce the training that you gave them. And not only that, when you're in the training, you let them know they're going to be tested at least monthly, and they'll pay a little bit more attention. If you can put this stuff together, it can be very, very effective, right? And that's where we have our winner. I do love this graphic here because that's kind of what people look like when you stick them in with coffee and donuts for training. So moving forward, managing the social engineering threats. So we have a very good platform here. Love our platform. There are things you can do, even if you're not using a platform like ours, that will really impact how these things work. Okay, this is how you make the human firewall. This is the new school awareness training type, right? First of all, you need baseline testing. You want to train your users. You want to fish the users, and you want to keep watching the results, right? So the baseline, you can't manage what you don't measure. That's an old saying. We've all heard it before, but you need to know where you're starting off. You need to know how bad it is. So what we recommend you do is you send out a simulated phishing email to a random sample of personnel to find out how many are tricked into doing this. And you can do this on your own. We actually offer a free one if you wanted to use us. There's no obligation, no cost, no whatever. But I give you an idea kind of how bad it really is to start out with. And that'll give you an idea of whether or not you're going to be able to improve. The next step that you want to do is you want to train everybody. And by everybody, I mean everybody. I'm talking top to bottom. We say the boardroom to the lunchroom because the executives are being targeted too. All right. Let me talk a little bit about what's going on with the CEO fraud side of the house. So CEO fraud is somebody sending a phishing email that looks like it came from your CEO slash executive director slash president slash owner. All right. And the CEO fraud is typically something along the lines of, hey, I need you to wire some money. There's always a sense of urgency. There's very often a secretive sort of thing about it. And to give you an idea how it'll go, someone, say a CFO or a financial controller, will get an email from the CEO of the company, and it'll say something along the lines of, hey, we're doing a bid to take over this company. It's very hush-hush. We can't talk about it publicly. I need you to transfer $30K to this account for us to show that we're serious about this. I'm in a meeting right now. We're negotiating it. I can't take any calls. I can't take any texts. Just get it done. I told them it'll be done in the next 45 minutes. And they get this email, and it looks like it came from your CEO, um, but it didn't. And believe it or not, this is a very lucrative business. Um, I believe the last report I saw was in the last couple of years, there's been 3.4 billion with a B dollars lost to this sort of thing. And I've talked to numerous people when I'm out on the road. Had one gal say, "Yeah, man, we got hit by that same thing." She said, "We we the CFO transferred the money and then called the CEO and said, 'All right, boss, I did what you said,' which is the exact opposite order of the way you should do that. You want to institute a ask first policy, and your execs need to be aware of that. Your execs need to be aware that this is a thing, and you are not going to transfer money. You're not going to transfer any sensitive information or do any of that without first talking to them in person. They need to be on board with that. And how do you get their buy-in? You train them. You teach them about what's going on. You teach them that this is a threat, and then they understand why you want to do this. And most of the time, they're going to go, okay, yeah, that's a good idea. Same thing goes for the W-2 scam, which is the cousin of the CEO fraud scam. And we're going to be seeing a lot more of that as we're heading into the new year here, right? And basically what that is you get the president of the company, you get the CEO, whoever, and they're going to send an email to someone in HR, something along those lines. And they're going to say something like, I need the W-2s for this year, blah, 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 blah. Send them to me in a PDF. I'll be working on them. Now, I've personally seen this happen. This hit a company I worked for. We didn't actually send them, but we got the message, and it was from the president of our company. He was actually out traveling. We think they got his email signature and all that from his out of office. And it was very well done. It said, I'm traveling right now. I need the W-2s sent to me. I'm about to get on a plane where I won't have internet access. You need to send it to me right away. I'll be working on this while I'm in the air, and then I'm going to be sending it to the tax guy as soon as I land. Fortunately, our gal was wise enough to go, something isn't right about this, even though the guy was on the road and the whole 9 yards. And she brought it to my attention, and we kind of looked through the reply and all that. The problem is, unlike the one that transferred the money, they were able to get that back, but it took 8 days. Once the W-2 information is out there, it's gone. And talked to some special agents in California not too long ago. They said when this happens with an organization, they usually see within several days all of the tax returns being filed, and the money sent to the bad guys. And that's a mess you really don't want to have to deal with, but it's very prevalent. And as we're heading into this part of the year, you're going to see a lot more of that going on. So you got to train everybody, whether it's the execs, whether it's the receptionist, because they're dealing with emails, they're dealing with phone calls, they're dealing with stuff too. It's got to go top to bottom. The other thing is they have to understand kind of the mechanisms. And no, I don't want them to be a James Bond. They don't have to figure everything out. They don't have to be able to do a packet analysis or anything like that. But they have to be aware of what's behind some of these things. The difference between spam and spear phishing. It doesn't have to be, again, where they have to be an expert, but they have to be savvy enough to be able to look at that and go, you know what, this looks like something could be that way. And if you do that, you can make a huge difference. And then you want to follow up by phishing like the bad guys, right? Full random is the best way to do this. And by full random, what I'm saying is you want it to go to a random user at a random time with a random message. What this does is it stops the prairie dogging. Okay, it stops people from popping up and looking over the cube and going, hey, Bob, don't click on that one from Amazon. It's a bad thing. This is one of those simulated phishing attacks, right? Because what you're testing here is you're testing the user's ability to spot this, not the user's ability to communicate over a cube wall. And that's a big difference right there. That's going to make a big difference in how things happen. You can also send, like, for example, we do Scam of the Week and Reported Phishings of the Week. You can, get on a good newsletter or something like that, or follow some posts and send that information out to your people too, so that they're aware of what to look for. And this kind of helps too. If you personalize the emails, um, you want to make them enticing, because that's what the bad guys are doing. You don't want to do errors in the simulated emails, like spelling errors, because it's not happening anymore. It's not like the old Nigerian scams, where every third word is misspelled. These guys are getting good. Um, and just looking for misspellings and saying, hey, that means it's not safe, or having no misspellings means it is safe, is not a good indicator anymore. Okay. Um, the bad guys, in the spear phishing side of things, are using LinkedIn to gather just a ton of information about people, and you can build a lot of data out of LinkedIn. You can build most of an org tree in many cases. So what they're going to do is they're going to take something, and if they're really after something specific, they're going to say, "Hey Bob," knowing their name is Bob. Um, your boss Phil said that you could help me by sending me this. I need these reports right away. And this adds legitimacy to it, and people tend to fall for that, right? You can do this on your own, internally. Fish them on things that are out there that are easy to find, or things that they're interested in, right? So you know somebody that's a huge gamer, and the new version of Whack-A-Mole 4 is coming out or something like that, and you can hit up some folks with some emails based on a Whack-A-Mole 4 release, at 50% off, whatever it is, that may drive home to them, because this is really happening. An example of that is, when the iPhone 7 was released, we had a template within a day, because we already started seeing those come in through that fish alert button, where folks were saying, get 50% off regardless of your carrier, et cetera, et cetera. And in no time, we were able to turn that around and get it into our templates to give to people, because it's happening. And whenever a major event happens, you expect to see the emails like that. So stay on top of those social engineering tactics and the current events, the things that are going on. Whenever somebody dies, um, you can expect to see the emails. Carrie Fisher, when Prince died, within a day or two, stuff is out there. Those sorts of events tug at people's heartstrings, which is really the core of social engineering. You get them to click on something because something upsets them or triggers some emotional reaction. And you do that, people are really easy to get to do other things. So then finally, you got to continue to test them regularly, right? So you can't just hit them with a phishing email and a training and call it good for the year. That doesn't work, because they'll start to not think about it, right? And the goal is, you want to instill a healthy level of paranoia. Now, you don't want to paralyze them from being able to do anything, but you want to make them think twice, um, before they open things that kind of put that little tingle in the back of your neck there. You want them to be able to do something about that, all right? So you continue to test them. You continue to look at this, and you got to analyze the results of those testings. So if you send out, 100 phishing emails and 70 of them are clicked, you got a real problem. Now, likewise, if your users are clicking or not clicking 100% of the emails, there's probably something going on. Either they've learned how to spot your style, or they're communicating with each other, or they're just not tough enough. You're making them too easy. So you can make them a little bit tougher. We offer the ability, they're all rated by difficulty levels. So you start people out kind of on the low end, so they're not frustrated. They're not walking away going, man, I will never be able to do this. I'm going to fail at this every time, so why bother trying? You get them feeling good about their ability to catch it. Your messaging has to be positive, like, all right, guys, you guys are doing great, but we're going to make it a little tougher on you guys, because that's what the bad guys are doing. If you continue that kind of messaging, you get them into playing the game, not as frustrated. You can increase the difficulty, and before you know it, you have very, very smart users. Um, how smart? Well, and how much of a difference can this make in the human firewall? Well, this is our stuff here. We had 300,000 users. We aggregated the data. This was just a database dump. This wasn't cherry picked. This wasn't anything like that. Across a year. All right, so we started out on average 15.9%. Well, I'll tell you this, if you do like our free PST and we give you something that's at 20 or 30%, don't be discouraged. We see that all the time too. But the overall average was about 15.9%. You train the people and you can see that the click ratio starts dropping pretty significantly just in the training. Now what happens is if you don't follow up on that, it's going to go right back up to the top again, which is not going to be helpful for you for those next 9 months. But by continuing to fish them and make it a little bit tougher, we ended up 1.2%. That's a 93% reduction in clicks a year later. So that's pretty significant. It really can work, I promise you, if you put a little bit of effort into it, okay? So finally, I want to tell you guys about some of the resources we have. We do have a ransomware hostage rescue manual. We do that free security test that I told you about. There's, uh, you don't have to be a customer. There's, no obligation. We also have a ransomware simulator, and this actually now has 10 different ransomware infection scenarios. This is for testing your endpoint protection, specifically the heuristics of it. So it's 10 different ways. It creates some files and it encrypts these files using the techniques that a lot of these ransomware strains are using to see if your endpoint protection needs to be tuned or something along those lines. We can do a domain spoof test. We can see if coming into your organization, if we can send emails to you that look like they're coming from the CEO, if you need to maybe do some SPF records or something along those lines. And then the fish alert button is awesome for us tech guys and security guys. What it does, you add it to your browser, you add it to Outlook, and when a user sees something, they highlight it, they click the button, it wraps that message up with an actual header instead of having to get them to forward it to you with the headers attached, and it sends it to your security folks so they can take a look at it and see what kind of stuff is coming in. If you start getting blasted with a bunch of these, you know that you're under attack. So it's very, very useful. And I will be making these slides available in PDF afterwards, or actually I should say David will, I believe. But we'll be able to send these to you guys. You will be able to get them to you. And you can take a look at this. But otherwise, knowbefore.com/resources. Again, these are all free. It's just stuff to kind of help you guys out. So that being said, I'm going to move over here to my question slide, and I'm going to give the keyboard and mouse back to David. David, are you there?
I am here. Yeah, great presentation,
All
Eric.
right. Hey, thank you. I appreciate it. So you should have the mouse back now, and I'm going to sit back and take a drink.
Okay, great. So about the slide deck, I did make that into a PDF, and it is available as a handout there in your GoToWebinar control panel. So you should be able to just click on that and just download it instantly right now. If you want to do that, go ahead and go for it, and feel free to share it, with your friends and coworkers. Now's the time for Q&A. We do have a number of questions that have already come in, and after our Q&A, I'll be announcing the prize winner for the $300 Amazon gift card. So we have just about 10 minutes left here for Q&A in this session, and if you're ready for some questions, Eric, we have some for you.
Absolutely. Are you just going to read them to me? Because I don't see anything on my screen. But, you have a nice melodious voice there. Why don't you go ahead and let me have them?
Okay, yeah, let me read them out to you here. So the first one is, I love this. It's not a question, but it's a comment, and that is Michael. He says, I absolutely love KnowBe4's product and already got a quote to upgrade to the new diamond level.
Nice.
Yeah, so
Thank you for that.
You got some fans here in the audience.
Awesome.
Let's see. The first real question is, Michael is asking, is there a danger that people will think that if they get continual testing emails, will they assume that a real one that comes is just another test? What's your take on that?
Well, that's kind of what you want them to do, but you want them to treat them all the same. Whether it's a test or a real one, you want them to look at it, you want them to hover the links and identify real quick that, hey, this is not a good thing. And this is where that fish alert button I talked about a couple times comes in. It's very handy to be able to give your users an alternative action to clicking the email, right? And whether that be you as an organization set up like a phishing at email address or something like that where folks can send this when they have questions, it's important that you give them an action to do afterwards. So in this case, if somebody gets a real phishing email mixed in with a bunch of simulated phishing emails, but they treat them all the same, which is to highlight them and send them, um, then that's actually a good thing. That's a win-win. And in our platform, actually, if it's one of our emails that we've sent out through the KnowBe4 platform and you're using that fish alert button, it'll actually pop up and say, hey, congratulations, this was a simulated phishing email, positive reinforcement, blah, 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 good job. So that helps do that. If you're not one of our customers, it doesn't know. So it just handles it like anything else. But ultimately, the result is the same. They didn't click the link.
Yeah, yeah, great point. Great point. You want them not to click any links and just be aware of all these bad emails that are coming in. Another person here asked a question, and I'll take a chance at answering this first, I guess. They're saying, is it worthwhile for to ever just pay the ransom instead of paying for training and trying to educate people? And my immediate reaction is no, because I mean, what about the downtime for your company for the data and how it makes your company look, right? If it's a hospital or some of the examples you gave here, and those services are down for days or a week while you pay the ransom and get access to your data back. What's your take, Eric?
No, I agree, and this is a question that it's kind of one of these ethical, moral questions sometimes where people are going, no, we should never do that because then the bad guys will continue to do it, and I agree with that. But here's the thing, the FBI's official stance on this is you don't pay the ransom. But every special agent I've talked to, every SA that I've talked to has said, look, we understand that if it's a matter of your business being closed or taking a ridiculous hit in reputation and suffering, we understand the real world is you have to make that as a business decision. Now, when it comes to these ransoms, something you have to understand is that's not a guarantee if you pay the ransom that you're going to get your files back. If the CNC infrastructure goes down, the command and control infrastructure, they may not be able to get you your keys. The other thing is when they encrypt these files, they're not necessarily working to make sure that everything is recoverable. They're trying to encrypt them quickly. Quick is the key. Making you not be able to get to them is the key. And I've known a lot of people that have gotten files back that were not complete, were jacked up, were unusable, or quite honestly were just a terrible mess to try to clean up. So you got to figure out what goes with what because everything's been renamed and now you don't really know what this file is, but you can read it, so you got to figure it out. It just gets real ugly real fast. And the other thing is, the last number I heard is it's about 33 man-hours per ransomware infection to recover. Okay, and that's going to include, the time of the person not being able to work, your IT folks over there trying to, straighten things up or do whatever, the re-imaging, getting the people back up and running generally takes about 33 man-hours. Well, that gets expensive very, very quickly. And, with respect to cost, when you're looking at ROI, to give you an idea, our product typically runs $10 to $15 a user per year. It doesn't take long to recover that kind of low cost with one or two ransomware infections. Not to mention, how do you gauge the value of your reputation when that happens? So honestly, there's a business decision. If you don't have backups and it's too late, you may have to pay it. But ultimately, it's money well spent to prevent people from clicking on it in the first place.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's like fire smoke detectors, in your house. It's like it's just so worth it to have it and try to prevent the damage, before it ever happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And we believe very strongly in endpoint protection. You do need to have endpoint protection. Now, it's not going to stop everything. It's not. It just doesn't. Okay, but that doesn't mean you throw it out. Because it will stop some things. And like so many other things in security, you're building on risk reduction. right? So if you can reduce the clicks by 93%, now 7% of those still get through. Okay, great. Well, your endpoint protection catches 92% of those. Well, your risk is further reduced. You see what I'm saying? It works together to reduce that risk overall. And that's really what security and info security is about these days.
Great point. Yeah. Someone here is asking about, they have a small software development firm. Is there a minimum number of people that, they need to, where it makes sense to subscribe to your service?
With us, we start with 25 users.
Okay. Okay.
So, that's pretty small. We also scale up into the tens of thousands of users. That's the beauty of the cloud. Yay, cloud. I got to say that on a webinar. Yay. But it is a SaaS. It's actually designed, and we really focus on the SMB market, the small medium business. And that's the whole idea behind our platform, is to make it really easy for those folks to be able to manage these. I showed you a little bit earlier, David, kind of how it works. And so much of it is a set and forget, so you don't have to spend all of your time doing it. You set up the campaigns, they run for the foreseeable future. And then you can go in and tweak them every once in a while based on what's happening with your responses.
Got it. Got it. Another question here from David. He says, do you offer CBT training other than simulation training? So maybe you want to clarify the whole KnowBe4 offering.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting one because the whole KnowBe4 offering just changed on Tuesday. So we do have we have CBT, basically an interactive SaaS provided kind of LMS training. Okay, so you're hitting the next, you're answering questions, you're going through that sort of stuff, and that's great. That's our primary bread and butter, and actually I think that does a great job of keeping people involved and interested. We have versions where Kevin Mitnick's in there showing people how to do stuff, which is really quite cool. And we also have some versions for corporate places that may not necessarily subscribe to that without the Kevin Mitnick. But we also now, on Tuesday, we announced that we partnered with the security awareness company, SAC, and we've pulled in like 300 new items for our users to use in the Diamond package, which is something that the gentleman, as Michael said earlier. That's a lot of those are just short videos. They're just watch them videos, not necessarily interactive, but they're giving you good information. So now we have a little bit of both, honestly.
Excellent, excellent. They're asking here, is it available in multiple languages?
Yes, it is. As a matter of fact, we do have a very short, it's like a 15-minute awareness video that's available in like 26 different languages. So we definitely have that. In some of the longer ones, 5, 6 languages, maybe. Just kind of varies across the board. If you want more information, you guys can reach out to me if there's specific languages or something you want. I'll be happy to look into what courses are available on that. But yeah, we definitely offer it in different languages. We even offer some of them in the different variations of English, where you have the British English, and then you have, us over here in the States, us Yanks, and our version of English.
Nice. Another question is, will you be releasing an on-premises version in the future? So what's available local versus in the cloud?
Gotcha. So for some of our customers, if you would like, we do offer these available in a SCORM, in a SCORM compatible format, right? So if you have your own LMS, you track everything through your LMS already, we can get you those files to be able to use in your own SCORM environment.
Excellent, excellent. And I know we're running out of time here, so I'm going to go ahead and announce the winner of the Amazon $300 gift card, and that is Mr. Chris Fuchs, I guess is how you say his last name. I'm not sure. Chris F. Will be contacting you via email. Congratulations. And I want to go ahead and bring up the final slide here in the deck, the call to action for everyone who's on the event. Since we're running out of time, If you have more questions for Eric, his contact info is up there. KnowBe4's website, KnowBe4's phone number. We have lots of great questions. I'm sure maybe we can get back to some of these after the event since we're running out of time. It's been a really interesting, very educational presentation today. Thanks so much, Eric.
Hey, thank you. I really appreciate it. And yeah, if you guys want to drop me an email or a tweet or something, that's fine. I am leaving here, getting on a plane and going to San Diego for San Diego B-Sides, where I'll be speaking. If you're in the neighborhood, stop by. But I'm telling you that because it may take me a little bit longer than usual to get back to you right away.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, for more information, make sure you check out knowbe4.com. There's lots of free tools available on there as well. Some of them I was checking out earlier. And of course, they have a really great ransomware and security awareness training. Thanks, everyone, for taking time out of your day. And thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.